Welcome to Magic and Media, the podcast brought to you by the Vibe Collective and me, Carly D. This podcast blends magic with the current pop culture news and moments to show you that magic is all around us every day. We just have to look around and find it. So we find the metaphysical and the magic in the world all around us and share it with you. Welcome to Magic and Media. We have some interesting energies that we are working in with and through this week. So let's just kick it off with our first topic, which is Taurus season. We are officially in Taurus season. This happened more like last week, like the 20th, 21st. So we are now in the thick of it when it comes to Taurus season. So think grounding, beauty, stability, luxury things, the finer things in life. Taurus is an earth sign, so they are very much about the physical and embracing the physical and material things. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too. But Taurus can also be a little stubborn sometimes. Maybe they need a little extra help listening or listening to others. And when we think of Taurus in media, I often think of movies with a rich, beautiful cinematography, like the new Wuthering Heights movie with Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. That movie is just very beautiful and aesthetic. When you're watching it, you can tell that it's almost like more of the story is being told by the visual than like the actual words in the story. So when I think of media and cinema in Taurus, I do think rich colors, florals, elaborate scapes and, like scapes set up on the tables that are in the movies, things like that. Taurus, there's really two words that came to mind when I was getting everything ready for our Taurus season. And those two words were beauty and aesthetic. So Taurus really does lean into the beautiful things, and beauty is subjective. It is in so many different things. So what is beautiful to you, whether that be nature, your family, music, food, drinks, movies, art, whatever that is for you, where are you finding the beauty? And then aesthetic is, the vibe, the energy, your own aesthetic, the aesthetic of your home. Taurus is an earth sign again. So having a home that is how you want it, like even tactily, the way, think of all five senses, like in your home, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you hear. Like Taurus is very aesthetic in kind of reaching out to all five senses even. I also think a lot of Bridgerton when I think of Taurus kind of in media or in, movies, shows, because it has such lush flowers, colors, attention to detail, especially in the costumes and like the time period. And it is very visually pleasing to watch. So think of anything you watch that is just like visually pleasing. Lots of like Wes Anderson movies, I would say, have a very kind of Taurus aesthetic, an aesthetic that follows like through a lot of his movies, but it's very noticeable. And again, it's like grabbing you in visually. So Taurus, yeah, beauty and aesthetic. And as we are in Taurus season, think about where you find beauty, maybe even where you can find beauty that's a little different. And what is your aesthetic? What do you want it to look like? Maybe you want to change up your personal style a little bit or invest in some nicer pieces as we come into a new season. But lean into those two words, I would say beauty and aesthetic, as we are in Taurus season, which is going to last pretty much until mid-June. I'm sorry, not mid-June, which is going to last until like mid-May. So we've got a month left. Sorry, my brain is literally on vibrate. But yeah, we've got a lot more time to kind of soak up the magic of Taurus season. Some famous Taurus in film and TV that we can kind of, look at their traits and see the Taurus of it all. The first one we have is George Clooney. He's very smooth, very steady, very like easy to look at, beautiful man. I think he's probably won that award a bunch of times, but very grounded, very likable. I would say, yeah, very grounded, especially when it comes to actors. We also have Audrey Hepburn, so very timeless. Again, an aesthetic that is timeless, that has stood the test of time, that people still use to this day. So that is very, very, very Taurus coded. We also have Megan Fox, so a little more modern. Megan Fox is actually really into like astrology and mysticism, so maybe we'll have to cover some more stuff about her, but she is very mysterious, which does give Scorpio. I know she's got some Scorpio in her chart too, but that like beautiful. She's quite literally known for her beauty, Megan Fox, and she's a Taurus. So that Taurus energy, and there is a groundedness to her, honestly, especially with all of her fame. When we think of sports, some Taurus would be David Beckham. Again, aesthetic, very strong with David Beckham. He was very into fashion and how he looked, especially even for an athlete, which is not really, I wouldn't say it's not the norm. Like, I know a lot of athletes do care about fashion and how they look, but David Beckham really does take it to like another standard. And that discipline, that drive, that determination, that kind of stubbornness in a good way is very Tauran, very Taurus. And I can see that helping him in his sports career in the physicalness of soccer and sports. We also have Serena Williams, who is a Taurus athlete. Same thing, very well known, very known for her aesthetic, the way she dressed on the court. She has a long history of wearing different outfits, being noticed for her outfits and her aesthetic. So aesthetic and personal style is very important. I feel like that just comes out more and more as we kind of lean into this Taurus season topic. So I would definitely pay some attention to your own personal style while we are in Taurus season. So those are our famous Taurus that we can kind of think of, see how they look on like a grand stage and how that can show up in our own life. I think there's a lot of positives we can derive in Taurus season that, like I said, discipline, stubbornness, that's in a positive way, that leaning into beauty and aesthetic. What we want to like watch out for, be mindful of in Taurus season is, again, listening, pay attention to other people and not overdoing it, not over consuming luxury things or rich things. There's power in moderation, and that is the thing with Taurus, of they do represent so much beauty and beautiful things, but we do have to be mindful of how much of that we are consuming. So that is our kind of, Taurus energy that we're in. But there is a lot of consistency in Taurus. Like we said, very strong personal style and really willing to put the work into the long term. So Taurus, I think, really are good at that, at like waiting things out almost, and continue to work no matter how hard it gets. Think of people like David Beckham and Serena Williams when it comes to their athletic careers. They've had to keep pushing, keep being consistent and persistent, dedicated to their sport no matter what happens. And again, that is when the stubbornness of Taurus can really help us and push us through. Aries season gives us that impulse and that initiative to go. Taurus is that longevity, that grounded earth sign to keep things going. Something different I want you to think about and embrace as we are going into Taurus season is also that sensory stuff does matter. Like I said at the top of this episode, when we think of Taurus and we're at home, what 5 senses are we appealing to? Taurus is a very physical energy, and we want it to feel grounded. We want to feel grounded, safe, protected, so we can operate from a place of balance. So think in your space, where can we kind of up the sensory, goodness? Where can we put a nice blanket? Where can we maybe do a candle or a scented spray or something? Where can we kind of appeal to more of the senses in our space? Because it does matter. And again, Taurus likes a lot of earthly things, material things. This even comes down to food. What in our house, sensory wise is serving us, and what is maybe not the best. Like, I want you to even think if there's like a towel that you just hate to use, right? And it's always the one in the back of the closet. Maybe it's time to just take that towel out, turn it into rags, or throw it away and get rid of it. What can you do to pay attention to the sensory things around you and kind of improve upon them, make things a little more cozy, maybe more minimal, more organized? Where can we make our home feel good? This has a lot of like feng shui kind of energy to it. But basically, if it feels good, people will gravitate towards it. So if you want to have that nice, good feeling in your house, we have to create it. And again, very earth side, very material, very Taurus. So personal style, and let's think sensory in our home. Where can we, those are very earthly, material, physical things. This is a good time to work in those things. We have Gemini season coming up next, which is air, 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 and we're going to have a lot of thought and communication then. So use Taurus season to make your home feel good, cozy, comfy as we get ready for summer and Gemini season. So that is our first topic today. Taurus season is here. I love me some Taurus season, honestly. I do feel it is like very grounding and just kind of makes you take stock of everything, kind of like a first quarter check-in almost. So make the most of your Taurus season and let us know what you find or what sensory thing you update in your own home. I'm always really interested to hear how people change things up and kind of shift their energy. Now, our second topic, tomorrow, May 1st, we have a Scorpio full moon. Scorpio can be very intense. They are also known for their secrets and like being mysterious. So then you add full moon energy onto that. Expect things to be illuminated or things to come to light. Like I said, Scorpio is secrets. Full moon shines a light on things. So if there's something maybe we're hiding from or not paying attention to, we will see that highlighted, I feel, in this full moon. But to be completely honest, this is an energy that is very dense. It's very intense. We may feel moody and irritable on Friday going into the weekend. Scorpio is not the comfiest energy to sit in. Let's remember they are the scorpion. So scorpion isn't really what we think of when we think of warm and fuzzy. And that is the energy that this full moon will have. So we do have this full moon on Friday, May 1st. It is going to be intense, but remember that it is a kind of a highlight on authenticity as well, to be who we are and embrace who we are. Don't feel so secretive that you want to hide yourself or hide maybe certain goals or passions. Remember that Scorpio is a water sign, so this is a good moon to make moon water under. And quick tip, one of my favorite ways to make moon water is to just get like a big gallon jug or a big bottle of water. Extra points if you get like some kind of nice water with like alkaline or something. But from the store, buy like a thing of water, place it on your back porch, place it outside. You don't have to look for a jar or anything around your house. You can quite literally just get a fresh jug of water, put it in your backyard and make moon water. Kind of a lazy witch tip, but you know what? That's my kind of favorite way to share magic is what are the easy, simple ways we can do it. I personally like to get like an alkaline charged water from the health food store or whatever, put that on the back porch and charge that up for moon water. So again, with Scorpio being a moon sign or a water sign, this is a really good moon to make moon water. I would actually even say especially intuitive moon water. So like if you are wanting to build your intuition a little more or do more dream work, I would make water under this full moon for that. And on the topic of it being a water energy, this is another good moon to use seashells. So if you like to use seashells on your altar or you live near a beach and you can go find some tomorrow on May 1st, those are some really nice ways to lean into the water energy of Scorpio because it is so intense. The water is calming, it's purifying, it's cleansing. So if you feel the intensity of that Scorpio full moon tomorrow, drink some water, spend time near water. If you can physically go in water, that may help calm you down too, but lean into what makes that sign feel at home, which is quite literally water. It is a deep sign. deep and intense, just like the depths of water. So just think, what is deep inside of me, and how much of that do I want to share, or could I share with others? What secrets are we kind of keeping in or holding inside that we can share, or that maybe we need to share? Think authenticity with this full moon. We might be feeling a little moody, we may be feeling a little irritable, or just quite moody, just not feeling it, or just feeling like you are in a mood. I'm already kind of preparing myself for Friday and people feeling that way, or myself feeling that way. But us being astrologically aware is power. So now that we know, that is definitely something to pay attention to. Another thing I want to point out is that this moon also overlaps with Beltane, which is a witchy traditional holiday. It's about fertility, fire, transformation. It has an energy of spring to it because we are in spring right now, right? So it's kind of that, attention to fertility, fire, transformation before we go into summer, and the summer solstice, which will be kind of the next shift into a new season. So that is very powerful, to have like Beltane and a full moon on the same day. Beltane is even like the ribbons, the maypole, that kind of stuff. So look more into that if you are interested in Beltane. But again, very powerful energy tomorrow to have a full moon on the 1st when Beltane is happening. Now, our last topic. This is an interesting one. I've been wanting to talk about this because I do feel it's really relevant, especially to the work that we do here at the Vibe Collective, being an online metaphysical collective, right? We have done this for so many reasons, but the main thing is accessibility, right? So yeah. Let's get into the topic before I even start explaining us. Our third topic of the week is Etsy witches. So if you are not familiar with the rise of Etsy witches, over the past few years, a niche corner of the internet has gone more mainstream. So these Etsy witches that were on Etsy, the very popular craft-like selling site, they would offer witchcraft-related goods, services, items, spiritual services, everything from like altar decorations or tapestries to candles, spell kits, oils, and at a basic level, Etsy hosts thousands of witch-themed items anyway, but the term witch-themed items meaning art, decor, crystals, candles, things like that. Very common and very popular on Etsy to buy product, metaphysical product, that has been crafted or made by witches. But the term Etsy witch refers to something a little more specific, and that is people selling magical or spiritual services online. So this is where we see the big difference. Forever, like Etsy has had people selling craft items and, metaphysical candles, spell kits, altars, crystals, stuff like that, can be sold, product wise pretty easily on Etsy. But Etsy kind of has been having a hard time. It's known that they're now kicking people off for selling these services or selling spells because you're not really selling a physical item. And there is some laws, believe it or not, in certain states in selling readings, fortunes, things like that, which is a whole other thing. So it's not technically even legal in some states, or you have to get certifications or something. It varies, but Etsy obviously is global. It goes worldwide. So they have had some issues with people, like I said, selling services, selling spells, but it did rise a lot in popularity when Jazz, who is a TikTok influencer, she had her wedding coming up and the forecast was all like rain, and she had an outdoor wedding, and she went viral for purchasing a good weather spell for her wedding from an Etsy witch. And then she ended up having like beautiful weather her whole wedding, and she had a big viral wedding. So the fact that she bought this good weather spell, and it actually worked. It was seen on a public stage, right? TikTok was able to see what quite literally an Etsy witch spell looked like playing out for this big influencer, Jazz. So that is when I feel like it really started to take off. I saw her a lot posting, people asking about her specific Etsy witch, who I guess now has her own website. And that's what I mean if it's very in tune of what we're doing here at the Vibe Collective. There was actually a lot of thought put into creating our own website because of things like this, and creating our own business, our own place, our own hub that we know and trust. Because I'm going to be so honest, in this world, getting metaphysical readings, tarot readings, mediumship, you should be skeptical. It is a world that has a lot of history when it comes to people scamming you or not being who they really say they are, or not having the best of intentions. And our goal with the Vibe Collective was to create a safe place online with real people offering these services with good intentions, good hearts, wanting to help others, where you know you can trust us, right? So while I appreciate what Etsy witches are doing, I feel that you do want to trust, you almost want to know people who you're having this spiritual connection with, because it is so deep. And we found no matter where you are in the world and you want to build that connection, we have the internet, we have these tools now to connect with people and their authentic selves, even if they're not sharing the same physical space with us or even in the same state or country. So there is a lot of value that we can put on being online and having connections to these things with people who aren't physically close to us. So I do think that that is very cool. That's very relevant to what is happening in the world right now, to embrace technology. But when you are doing spell work or personal work like that, where the disconnect is for me is we do want to trust that person to an extent. They don't need to be your best friend, but vibes are real, energy is real. And like I said, it is the kind of business where you do want to be skeptical. You do want to be looking out. I have had friends who have been approached by readers asking for hundreds of dollars to clear a black aura off their heart chakra. And that's crazy. It costs $0 to clean a black aura off of your heart chakra. But there are people out there who will happily take your money and sell you that service. So we have to be very mindful of who we are working with when we are working with energy. So like we said, selling physical products like handmade candles, oils, crystal bowls, even home decor that has witchy artwork on it, or spell kits for beginners that would have a candle or a Palo Santo, a little ritual piece of paper or a crystal in it, beginner spell kits for people to kind of get your feet wet. All that is perfectly fine on Etsy. To them, it's selling product. And I do think it's a very common and pretty safe way to get into the metaphysical and get into doing your own kind of spell work and things like that. Aside from purchasing a spell, you can also buy spell instructions. They're often sold as PDFs on Etsy, or they'll send written readings, written tarot readings or rune readings for people, channeling readings for people that are typed out instead of done in person. And I think that is normal. I've done typed out readings before too. So this is all kind of stuff that we're selling on the internet though, but where they really have had controversy, again, is selling the actual work of doing the spell, right? So okay to buy candles, okay to buy readings, maybe even some spell instructions. But when we get down to literally buying a spell service from someone, that is when we hit the controversy. And I'm right there with you, thinking it's controversial, seeing the pros, seeing the cons. It is very complicated. And some of these sellers offer spellcasting that has to do with things like love, protection, revenge, work, money, tarot readings, which is a little more you're getting an experience, you're sharing it with someone. And of course, energy cleansing rituals, like we said, which I honestly, if I had to say a PSA of what to watch out for most scam wise in the metaphysical world, I would say it is stuff like that. I've worked in this industry for almost a decade now, and I have definitely seen people trying to sell energy cleansing rituals that are just quite literally not real. It is a way to get money from people, to prey on their insecurities. I've seen it in action, and what I try to do with tarot readings and what I know we're trying to do here with the Vibe Collective is to empower you, show you parts of yourself that maybe you're not paying attention to, and really put the power back in your hands, instead of, trying to get something from you, in some way. So be very mindful if you ever see an energy cleansing ritual that is at a very high price. There's probably something going on there. Probably should do a little bit more research. Even though Etsy did officially ban metaphysical services, lots of sellers are still on there selling it in kind of disguised ways, or just different ways they're still doing it, right? So why are Etsy witches so popular? Why are we seeing this kind of like rise in people going online? Well, of course, it's younger generations who are used to the internet, who have been online. We're seeing more of a draw to spirituality and witchcraft in these past years than we did prior. And I definitely agree with that. Using these tools can be a form of identity and coping. And I think that everyone is kind of looking for new ways to do that always in the world. So, doing everything you can, but also, throwing a little extra to an Etsy witch for a spell, kind of like, why not, right? It's a coping mechanism for people in a lot of ways. Another thing too is just social media, right? You can make TikToks. We've seen people go viral for it. So there is that like garnering of attention on social media as well. Now, what I think is interesting and my kind of take on it is the work of buying a spell. It does get complicated because I do feel some work really does need to be done by you. You need to do it yourself. However, I totally get that not everyone is into this stuff, into spell works and rituals and burning candles. And they also might not have the desire to get into it, right? To buy the spell kit, to buy the candle. They just quite literally are that person I described where, I kind of did everything else I needed to for my wedding. So why not throw, $20 to an Etsy witch to do a good weather spell for me? They just don't really care to get into it. And I totally understand that. They may not be interested in doing the magic themselves, but we have a society now that is interested in the magic that comes from doing the spell work or doing ritual work. So they may not want to do it themselves, but they want to feel that magic, even if it's secondhand because someone else is doing it. And whether it is placebo or not, I do feel it has an effect. Of course. So on that note, I am in the gray when it comes to, is it okay to sell a spell? Like I said, I know practitioners that do it. I see it done quite often, but I do believe in empowering people to learn or to sell them the supplies and give them the knowledge of how to do it themselves. I have no problem with people doing that. I think that's totally like how these traditions have been passed down for generations and generations. It's how I learned a lot of this, is quite literally just vocally, verbally sharing spells, sharing tips, rituals with people. So it is something that does have to be passed down, has to be shared with people. So I definitely see the power in that, but I am in the gray when it comes to is it okay to hire someone to do this spell for you, or where does the energy exchange kind of, change? I'm not totally against it, but I'm not totally for it. So I have studied spell work, candle work for years. I've used it a lot in my life, and it does take your own energy to do it, which is what puts the power behind it a lot of the time. So with oils, candles, herbs, and intention, I think you really can get into it when you see the work in your life, which I have. So if you've ever done a spell and then seen the result work out in your favor, you're really like, oh my gosh, it works, right? So that's what I mean by that. Once you're actually doing it, you're actually doing rituals or burning candles with intention in your home, and you see it pay off, especially if it's a direct result into something you were working for. It's very it shows you that you have that power. And it is a deep, vast world of knowledge to uncover in spell work. There's so much you can do. There's so many different oils and combinations and things that you can create when it comes to spell work. So it really is limitless. There's just so much you can learn. So if you are wanting to do a spell, take the time to focus on one that you want to work on specifically, and maybe even create it for yourself, right? Do the research, put the time and energy into it, and I do feel you'll have even more power behind that spell. But ultimately, if this is a way to bring more people into magic, then I think that that's great, right? If getting a spell from an Etsy witch opens the door to you maybe getting a reading or investing some time in meditation, I am for anything that kind of is pushing people to put the power back in their hands, to embrace the magic around them, to be intentional with the things that they're doing and what they want in life. So if it serves that purpose, I am all for it. But I do think there's some gray area or things that we should pay attention to or be mindful of. But we will talk on another episode about certain spells I've done and seen the results of. But just a little teaser, one of the best, I think, results I ever saw from a spell was actually to buy our house, and it worked. So I will share that one on another podcast episode, but I have quite literally seen candle work pay off in real life. So very cool stuff. But yeah, that's kind of our first take on Etsy witches. Very much in the media, very much in social media. So gives you a lot to think about, especially as someone who has been in this industry selling tarot readings for almost a decade. Yeah, very interesting. So next week, we are going to be talking about the Met Gala. If you're not aware, the Met Gala is a gala that takes place in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. It's known for its themes, for celebrities, fashion, style. It's a huge night, but we are going to cover it next week. The theme of the Met Gala is costume art this year in 2026. So it will explore the deep connection with fashion and art. We talked about probably a couple months ago in one of the episodes how we are seeing a lot of crystals show up in fashion or astrology or tarot stuff showing up in fashion. So I'm interested to see what kind of magical influence we see in the Met Gala outfits for the costume art theme. So stay tuned. We will see you next week. And as always, find the magic in your own life.